time for another Elsie's Little Pickles, the pickle pod for the people. And we got the whole clan here today. We are fortunate enough to have Kiefer back from his surgery where he was being, basically, his brain was being put into his RV. He now identifies as an RV. Beep, beep, toot, toot to you.
Thank you, Elon.
That was supposed to be a tin kazoo, and it did not come through. Nope. Sorry, buddy.
That's funny.
That's fucking great. You sound like the teacher from the Peanuts cartoons. Yeah. So, this is the first pod of the new year, and we're only a couple of days in.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. We're only a couple of days in.
Yeah.
I mean, might as well just jump into it. There's a lot to talk about already. So the one thing that you had said, Kiefer, that had caught your eye was a story about dogs.
Yes. Apparently there are packs of wild dogs hanging out in Chernobyl. They're playing poker. They're drinking whiskey.
They're walking
dogs
on their
and cats
hind legs.
living together.
They're walking on their hind legs. They've got opposable thumbs now and a third eye, and they're the ones running the Jones over New Jersey.
Yeah, radiation actually turns you into a drone.
And so, for those who don't know, obviously we have Kiefer back, but we also have Colton.
Hello.
It's very fortunate we're lucky to have you while you're off during the holidays so that we can take advantage of your knowledge and try to figure out what the fuck is going on in the world. So let's start off with...
As an aside, I do some AI storybooks where it's basically interactive storytelling where you're a part of it, like choose your own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And I start off every single one with 2 words, which would be
fuck me.
Obi-Wan Kenobi's hello there.
Hello there. It's the greatest line and greatest delivery of a line, not by just Sir Alec Guinness, but also by Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Both did the delivery perfectly. All right, so we started off the new year in typical style. We had the Trump Tower Cybertruck incident where they are now saying that it's an unfortunate suicide is what they're calling it.
It was not.
It was not.
Yeah, no. There were fireworks in the car.
Yeah, I've seen the video.
Yeah, I don't think that was an unfortunate suicide. Apparently, he did shoot himself. So there is that suicide aspect to it. And apparently, I'm guessing he shot himself, or he hit the igniter and then shot himself. So I'm guessing he burned up in the Cybertruck. But just from optics,
a great January 1st, seeing Elon's pièce de résistance burning in front of a Trump property.
Yeah. It was so, I'm sorry to say this, but look, if the same type of thing would have happened and it was a Democrat, I'd still be saying the same thing. All right. Which is that does not look, the optics on that are shit for you as incoming president and shit for you.
Shadow president.
And as a shadow president. Then you had.
Interesting to note that I haven't seen anybody talk about both the New Orleans truck murder spree,
right, which was about to get to,
and the Las Vegas Cybertruck.
They both came out of Fort Bragg, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know who else apparently came out of Fort Bragg was the guy who attempted to kill Trump when he was on the golf course. So when you had the attempted assassination attempt.
We're locking down Fort Bragg.
Attempted assassination attempt. I can
bragging about Fort Bragg.
I don't mean to brag.
I'm going to send the National Guard into Fort Bragg.
They were big soldiers. They were beautiful soldiers. They had tears in their eyes. And they said, Mr. Trump.
It was like the cast of Magic Mike with guns.
So, yes, you had the, and this is how we, first off, let me back up just a moment. I gotta shout out to our Berlin listener. This, whoever it is, man, woman, I don't know who it is, but man, have they just every time we get an episode out, whoever it is in Berlin is one of the first to download it. So I just wanted to give a shout out to whoever that is and say thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Dankeschön.
That's probably much more appropriate.
We should learn and do a show in German.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. Okay, that's never going to happen. But I did want to say that because I know I was checking our stats for the year before we started the new year, so that I had some sort of comparisons. And one of the things that kept standing out was in every month, boy, you know, our fan or our person, our buddy, whatever in Berlin is always one of the first to download. I mean, like usually, if not the first, within the first 3. So just want to say
We'd
thank
love
you.
to hear from you.
Yeah, you can email us at elsieslittlepickles@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter, or you can hit us up on Facebook. However, with that being said, you wake up on the 1st, you're dealing with the Trump Tower incident, you got the NOLA attack. I think the NOLA attack happened first, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve.
Was that New Year's Eve? Okay.
Like 3 a.m.
Okay, because all I know is that I woke up, about 1 o'clock, and it was like shit was going wrong everywhere. Today, we had Mike Johnson get the job of Speaker of the House, but not without a little bit of drama. They were able to do it in one vote, but he didn't get it on the first vote, so they kind of paused it, and he was able to wrangle them.
They had to go to like deliberation rooms, and
and supposedly he didn't give anything away, but come on, he gave something away. So, you know,
with the NOLA attack, there were IEDs, not to be confused with IUDs.
No, you don't want to put an IED in your hoo-ha.
And you definitely don't want to do a terrorist attack with IUD.
No, because the only thing you're preventing is pregnancy at that point. All right, so I guess my question is, and I'm going to pose this as a question, and then we'll get into what I, kind of think is going on. But to each of you, with that, essentially 4 days. What are we? 3 days in, 4 days in, something like that.
3 days in.
All right, so we're 3 days in as of recording to the new year. Mm-hmm. Is that a sign of what's to come this year?
Oh, I'm locking in. This is going to be a shit show.
It is.
All right, so we'll go to each of you. Let's start off with you, Keith. Why do you think it's going to be a shit show?
We have started off the new year, literally the first 24 hours, with 2 major attacks. I mean, they almost had to break into the CNN New Year.
Yeah, but I mean that's what I'm saying is it wasn't exactly a stellar beginning, considering that whether you call those terrorist attacks or not, whether you call it a unfortunate suicide in Vegas or whether it was a terrorist attack, these were Americans, both of them soldiers. That should tell you something.
I started off New Year's Eve sitting watching the Winter Classic, the NHL Winter Classic.
Mm-hmm.
And something I do every year because I love hockey. Right off the bat, I want to say the amount of musical acts for sporting events that are pre-recorded and then just lip-synced is getting a little out of hand, folks.
No.
I still maintain that the best Super Bowl halftime performance ever was Creed.
Creed?
How dare you? How dare you? I maintain that the best one ever was Janet Jackson.
Yeah, I would. Take me higher to a place and we shall high. I don't even think
there springs tears to my eyes.
And
What's wonderful is we'll never get hit with a copyright violation because we're horrible.
Yeah, exactly. You can't even tell what we're doing. All right, I can't tell. All right, Colton, what do you think 2025 is going to bring? And I'm trying to not make this about the next 4 years. I'm just talking about 2025.
Just 2025. Okay, so obviously we have the first 100 days of Donald Trump to dread, but even outside of that, they locked down a majority with the speaker in the House, they locked down a majority in the Senate, and they bought the Supreme Court. Right? So
yeah,
this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad on a politics level. Trump is basically just going to go unopposed. He's going to be God King. That's really all you're going to see out of that.
Well, definitely.
On top of that,
definitely for the first 100 days, I would say that he's going to be God King.
And I think we get maybe a year out of Trump before he's basically just checked out. And, whoever's sucking him off the hardest is going to basically be feeding him like, okay,
that's Stephen.
Don't do that.
Yeah, that's Stephen Miller. No, I think that's Stephen Miller. I think Stephen Miller, the modern day Nosferatu.
One's going to be ringing in his butthole ring in the back, and one.
Yeah. He's getting the sloppiest of toppy.
Sloppy toppy. It's a candy we need to make. Elsie's little Pickles presents Sloppy Toppy.
in a politics adjacent sense, something we saw in Trump's first term was emboldening of far right movements, neo-Nazis, the KKK, so on and so forth. And I don't think that that's going to be any better this time. And while I can't make any definitive claims on the Cybertruck attack or the New Orleans attack, they were both in the military, and the military has a pretty recurring problem of extremely far right people.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably a little bit more within the last
decade or so.
A little bit more than a decade. I think you started to see that happening as soldiers were coming back from Afghanistan specifically.
And again, this is not to disparage soldiers in general. Obviously, like, that's a job that I would never want to do, and the fact that some people do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I respect the courage, but when you come out of that with Nazi ideology,
well, I don't know.
That's where I kind of disconnect. I got to be honest.
I don't know that that's specifically Nazi ideology. I get where you're coming from with it. What I would say is that there definitely was. I mean, look, you had.
There's a correlation, not necessarily a causation.
Well, you had Bush start the war, and then that was essentially, we'll call it 7 years. And everyone was rah, rah, rah in the beginning, and then it started to fall off, and people were like, rah? No. And I think...
No rah.
And I think that it became, under Obama, a circumstance where they started, because they had the full 8 years under Obama. And I think that the outlook became bleaker for them as they were, getting called up their third, fourth, fifth time.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of soldiers really, really didn't like Obama because of the rules of engagement that he implemented.
Yeah, so which
was essentially, you can't do anything until you're fired upon, which essentially guarantees that you lose American soldiers before you're allowed to
Well, you definitely have a higher possibility of that. And I did not necessarily agree with Obama on that. What I would say, though, is that because of that, and specifically because it was 8 years under Obama, under that type of policy and other policies, which maybe some of the men and women on the front line thought were easily said by a politician in an office, but not realistic to what was going on the ground. So I can see why you would get spun out.
The solution, in my opinion, is don't just invade countries that have nothing to do with anything. Crazy idea.
Well, look, at the end of the day,
we have the CIA. We knew where bin Laden was. Don't pretend like we had any business going into Iraq under Bush. Don't pretend like we had any reason to be anywhere other than we found bin Laden where? Pakistan?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So look, I guess it's my turn. My view is it's going to be much of the same. All right. So if you look at what this future year and potentially years will look like, it's going to be much of the same. And by that, I mean, wars, wars, wars. But you always got to look to see who's pushing that narrative, right?
I'm the most anti-war president, but I'm going to increase drone strikes.
Well, hold on. And that's the thing is like he has set up, based off of his previous administration, the fact that he was the most anti-war. That is not necessarily true. He did participate. I remember him trying to pull off an Obama talking about the terrorist leader that he had. So,
well, Obama went stupid with drone strikes and bombing in the Middle East. Trump more than doubled that. So I don't buy the narrative.
Well,
that he's anti-war.
That's why I'm saying this is he says one thing but is another, and I think that that's really what we've got to look at specifically in his first year in office is what has he said versus what is the reality on the ground.
Yep.
And to me, it doesn't matter what the war is. I still would say that on specific wars, he is the most hawkish, right? So you got hot wars, which is, Afghanistan, Iraq, all that shit, right? Cold wars, which was, the 40, 50 years
Soviet
or whatever,
Union.
Soviet Union,
Yep.
Both of which, we didn't like or whatever, but we knew they had a beginning and we knew that they were going to have an end.
But also with Cold Wars, I just have to point out, they were really more like room temperature wars because there were still hot wars happening, right? It just wasn't a direct war between the Soviet Union and the United States. Right.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess ultimately my point is that we as a country think about these things as either a hot war or a cold war, and we think about it in terms of other people. But I think that the most dangerous war, and the war that has been raging in this country for way too long, is culture war. Case in point, you look at Costco; they're getting boycotted by MAGA because they basically said at shareholders meeting, when the shareholders were like, we want you to get rid of DEI, they were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We like how it is right now. We believe in giving everyone an opportunity to have a job. So, yeah, we're not doing that, right? So then the question becomes, who stokes that fire, right? Who's stoking the fire more when it comes to DEI? Come on, baby, stoke my fire. I want to see shit burn entire. All right. I don't know where that came from.
I don't know.
The socials, the social media, this came across on X, and I thought it was interesting because this is basically Fox News doing the propaganda machine that to feed the fucking retards.
As they do.
But I want you guys to listen to this real quick because this is what I'm talking about when I say I'm not saying that it doesn't happen on both sides, and we'll get into that in a minute. However, I don't think even MSNBC is doing anything like this. So listen to what I'm talking about. This is a compilation of wars that are being brought up.
And I have a comment on this, but play the clip first.
All right, here we go.
War on Christmas, a war on Thanksgiving.
This war on fun.
The war on straws. War on meat.
Joe Biden declared war on freedom yesterday.
It's a war on small businesses.
The war on dogs.
There is a war on parents.
The left's war on children.
War on privacy in middle America.
It's a war on business, a war on building, a war on growth.
This is a war on police now. It's a war on achievement.
There is a war on hot dogs.
A war on white journalists.
Great point.
The government's war on the Attilas gym in New Jersey.
War on men.
War on cars.
War on appetizers.
War on Christianity and Judaism.
War on MAGA.
War on Christmas parties.
The war on the suburbs.
War on school choice.
The war on conservative women.
Declaring war on cows.
There's war on wealthy Americans.
There's war on Republican governors.
War on all things conservative.
The war on American culture.
The war on, yes, white men.
War on Fox.
War on soda.
There's now a war on styrofoam.
The Democrats' war on cooking with gas.
The war on the taxpayer.
There's war on legal guns.
War on toxic masculinity.
War on red hat.
Biden's war on tradition.
War on YouTube conservatives.
War on knives.
Okay, so now
So
I have
if I'm
two
not
things to
mistaken,
say.
that was 45 wars that we're fighting.
I have two
That
things to
does not
say.
count my war on cereal,
Right.
which I won before the podcast.
What, not to interrupt, Colton, but which cereal did you take down?
I had a hot cocoa life cereal.
Oh, you did you?
Yes, I did.
And I'm guessing you killed that shit.
Oh, I did.
I know
I
how you
made it
are.
my
I
day.
know how you are in a cereal war.
Housed it.
All right. So my question is, if you got 45 wars going, that's just being mentioned by Fox News.
Yes.
I mean, how do we navigate that? How do we get through that? There's war everywhere. Oh my God.
Well, two things that I would like to point out. First, how hard do you have to jump the shark as a country to anything that you're not, happy with? You have to declare war on it or pretend like it's been declared war on, right? So that's the first thing. We're so warlike as a country. We put the Romans to shame. Like everything we're declaring war on.
Well,
Second point.
yeah, I just wanted to say I totally agree with you, and I don't understand why we are in that position. But go on.
Second point. Anything but acknowledging the class war. Class war has been going on since time immemorial, since the Industrial Revolution.
That's just libtard Democrat bullshit that you're spewing, son. How can you talk in such a way? How can you possibly say that there's a class war?
You just have a war on billionaires, buddy.
Yeah, it's a war on billionaires.
It's almost like the billionaires are actively undermining the middle class, undermining the lowest income people in the country.
Well,
but we aren't allowed to acknowledge that. But instead, here's your spoon-fed bullshit about the war on Christmas, the war on Christianity, the war on fucking hot dogs.
Yeah, but you don't understand, son. I mean, you're young. You're young. You're a nubile young youth. You're in your 20s. How could you possibly understand the pain and suffering that the billionaire class has suffered from the middle class?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I can't do it without smiling. I can't do it without laughing. I can't do it.
They'll acknowledge any war except class war.
No,
the
that's
only
not true.
real war that's happening.
There's another one there's another couple that they won't acknowledge, but we'll get to that in a moment too. So, all right. I'm trying to be, as usual, I mean, prior to the election going sideways and Kamala getting involved and Biden dropping out, I was very, very cautious and even to some degree defensive defending the MAGA mentality and Trump and trying to be as fair as possible, right? I've discovered that is a lot more difficult task than I ever thought, but I will still, as a spectator, right? Because I really believe that at this point, this is definitively become a spectator sport, at least for me. The question is, how many wars on the cultural side, I mean, can we honestly continue to fight? And if you look at it, based off of that, it's about 45 from their point of view. Now, that's not to say that the Democrats don't have their, social wars too. So let's get into a couple of these that are the big fights between Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals, MAGA, and everyone.
What I hope everyone at home will notice is that there's one side that's arguing for legitimate things that need legislative attention, unfortunately, to some extent.
Well, again, I think you can argue that on both sides because it really depends on how you view those cultural things. So somebody
then there's the other side, which is actively trying to suppress the rights and privileges of certain sects of people.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm simply saying that you actually, if you're going to have an honest debate about this, if you're going to have an honest argument about it, it is easy to say, based on our political belief systems, all three of us, that everything that the Republicans bring up is just bullshit and everything that we bring up is absolutely necessary. I don't I don't agree with that. However, what I will say, and Colton and I had this conversation off air a couple nights ago, actually. My biggest problem is there are some things that should not come out of a politician's mouth. They just don't belong in politics at all. I don't think anything healthcare related, unless it's to lower the prices or make sure we're getting a better care, there's very few other things that fall into we need to have politicians running for office on that. Abortion is one of them. If you don't want an abortion, and I know I'm going to get crucified for this because I got crucified online for this, but my view is, no, even if I give you everything, every argument you have, right? You're pro-life, and I'm going to give you every argument from the moment of conception, the moment that little spermie hits that egg and makes its way in. From that very moment, as soon as it breaks through and it does its magic, you say it's a human being. I disagree with you. However, I do believe that there should be at least 24, if not 26 to 28 weeks where a woman can make a decision on whether or not she's going to carry that baby to term. And I don't think that that's anyone else's fucking decision to make. I don't think it's a politician, definitively. I will slap the fuck out of a politician who says that they have the right to do that. I think that that's bullshit. I will slap those words out of your fucking mouth. You have no right to make a decision that is going to affect however many thousands to hundreds of thousands, or maybe even over the course of time, millions of women without any other plan than, no, you can't have an abortion, and too bad, you shouldn't have had sex if you weren't ready to raise a child. That's bullshit. It doesn't work, and fuck off. And the reason I say fuck off on that is because there are plenty of married people, right, who don't or have had children. Let's say, for example, they've had 2 or 3 or 4 children, and then oops, a boo-boo baby comes. They're not supposed to fuck except for reproduction. That's a way to increase the divorce rate 100-fold. So fuck you. No,
but they also want to get rid of no-fault divorce.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the deal. Here's my deal on the abortion culture war. It's often the pro-life people that put forward a religious justification.
And there's no place in politics or in the U.S. government for any fucking religion. They can go fuck themselves with that, too.
Even beyond that, my understanding of the Bible is that the rapture will bring about 400,000 people to heaven. Wow. There are 8 billion people on this planet. What the fuck does it matter to you if one of them gets an abortion?
Exactly. But Keith, you had something to add to that?
Yes. Contrary to popular opinion, the rapture does not appear in the Bible.
You know what? Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it.
Yeah. It was not a thing until the 1800s.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Fuck you, everyone.
Get out of here with your Victorian bullshit.
Your Victorian rapture bullshit. Go fuck yourself. All right. So the other thing that bothers me is when it's and you see this more with the Republicans. They'll say something to the effect of, "Well, I'm a good Christian. I don't believe in gay marriage." Well, being a good Christian has nothing to do with gay marriage. That has nothing to do with it. And whether you agree with it or you disagree with it, that's your interpretation of your Bible. That's your interpretation of your belief system
in application to your life.
I am a good Christian, and I don't believe that my wallet is empty.
Exactly. It has no bearing.
I'm a good Christian, and I don't believe billionaires should exist.
I'm a good Christian, and you should see how big my cock is. I mean, again, if we're going to live in a fucking fantasy.
I'm a good Christian, and I believe my dick is bigger than Jesus.
I'm a good Christian, and my dick is Jesus.
Jesus was hanging meat. You know it.
No, I'm a good Christian, and my dick is Jesus.
Beware of the Christ cock.
Communion is going to be awkward for both of you.
I just watched a video of a woman outraged at I think it was Costco, actually. And she wanted management to remove a woman from the store because she had a Cradle of Filth t-shirt on, and the back of the shirt says, "Jesus is a cunt."
Good.
And she was offended by it.
Yeah,
and
you know what?
And was angry because management wouldn't remove the woman.
Okay, so here's the thing. When it comes to something like that, that's freedom of speech, whether you like it or not. So sorry. Boo-hoo elsewhere. Secondly,
as is burning a flag, as is burning a Bible, as
why
is...
do you care? Why does anyone care? Why would let's back up on that whole I'm offended. Okay, so good.
I thought that was lib cuck behavior.
Well, first off, I don't give a fuck. Yeah, it was originally, but quite frankly, I don't give a flying fuck. That's your opinion. And there are plenty of other people who have a different opinion than to think that they're going to be offended by something on a t-shirt. Okay? I could easily say, well, I'm offended by MAGA t-shirts. There are plenty of offensive MAGA t-shirts out there. Plenty. All right?
Oh, yeah.
So, you know what? I'm not walking up to a manager at fucking, Costco or Sam's Club or fucking Meijer or wherever,
Seize that man.
I'm not saying, my God, I'm offended and you shall not shop here. Manager, get the fuck out of here.
You shall not shop.
Boom.
Put him in the Costco guillotine.
Yeah, I mean...
40% off. Good deal.
So, all right, let's just go down these. I'm going to read the main ones for the Democratic Party, and then I'm going to read the main ones for the Republican Party, and then we can kind of go through them. We'll go kind of like one and one, right? So with the Democratic Party, LGBTQ plus rights, support for same-sex marriage, right? You go to the Republican side, LGBTQ issues, opposition to transgender participation in women's sports. I'm not going to get into that one. That's a very deep one with very, very small amounts of proof, okay?
I mean, you're talking one transgender kid in the state of Oklahoma wanted to play volleyball or something.
Yeah, and look,
we're going to pass a statewide bill, if not a federal bill, to stop one person from playing volleyball.
But I do have...
How dare you?
I do have that opinion of, look, you do have a difference between biologically born males and biologically born females. That's why you have weight, even if you didn't, okay? Even if you didn't.
Not permanently.
Okay, but even if you didn't, in damn near any sport, well, not any, but most, there are weight classes, all right? And that exists for a reason. You have people who are in positions that, like in football, you're not putting a running back on the defensive line, right? I mean, because that fast...
That's not the skill set.
It's not the skill set, right? It's just not the skill set. So if you have somebody, let's say it's with volleyball, and they were somebody who, went through puberty and then decided, in their 11th, 12th grade year of high school that they wanted to become trans, I'm all for it. I do have a difficult time, though, if that person gets a position on the team over somebody else who's actually born for that, or who played that particular position and is born a biological female. And the reason is because the whole point of women's sports was to divide them from men's sports, right?
Well,
and now we're arguing about semantics as far as like the biological beginning versus the biological current versus the biological end. I think that this is definitely something that needs to have conversation. I don't think that it's something that needs to be done on a federal level. I don't think it's something that necessarily even needs to be done on a state level. I think that this is something that should be hashed out within the conferences of each of those particular sports. And that's whatever those conferences decide, because it is a small amount of people. My argument would be you really need to hash that out specifically in high school sports, because those high school sports, if you have somebody who doesn't make it to, first round or first draft, or doesn't get to play because there's a trans that's taken their position and they lose out on the opportunity for a scholarship, I don't think that that's fair, especially if that's somebody that's been playing that particular sport 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and 11th grade comes and all of a sudden, guess what?
But again, as I was explaining to you in our previous conversation about this, I would point you towards research on puberty blockers. I would point you towards research on how long it actually takes for someone transitioning to basically on every level aside from the chromosomal level be the gender that they
You're
choose.
still going to have the innate musculature.
No, you're not.
That
dissipates
for a period of time. You're still gonna have a little bit of that.
And again,
and maybe
like
you're
I said,
right. Maybe you're right.
Like I said in our previous conversation, and again, we're getting pretty deep into this just one topic, and we can move forward after this. But
yeah, I don't want to linger on any of them really.
I'm not saying that someone that said, if I tomorrow said, yeah, I'm a woman, and I gonna join the women's boxing league tomorrow. That's ridiculous.
Well, that's
I'm not
kind
saying
of
that's okay.
No, okay, so we are in agreement on that. I think that there has to be a period of
time. Yeah, there is a period of time, but after that period of time, there is no discernible difference.
My argument is this: that should be discussed at a conference level, okay, for whatever those sports are, locally on a conference level, first and foremost. And secondly, there has to be a determination that's scientifically backed up that shows that given a period of time, these things will equal out, right? But you can't just like all of a sudden say, throw a wig on, some lipstick and some chicken cutlets and a bra and say, I'm gonna play on the fucking women's basketball team. And you're 6'4", you know what I mean? Like you're already 6'4", right? So I mean, you're 6'4". Bad choice trying to transition to a woman when you're 6'4". You're not going to have a deep dating pool under the best circumstances. I don't know any woman that's 6'4" that is happy about that.
Players.
Yeah, I mean, so like, let's just keep it in check. Let's just use common sense, have the science back it up, but at least be able to say, okay, if you're let's say, for example, you're in 10th grade and you're a biological male, you go through the summer, you transition through puberty blockers, you go through, whatever. Everything except the actual surgery, because you can't do that, I don't think, until you're 18, and you shouldn't be able to do that, in my opinion, until you're 18. Honestly.
Yeah, it's only extreme psychological cases that you see top surgery before the age of 18. You don't see any bottom surgeries until after 18.
I would say that the bottom surgery should be like a 25, because you can always get fake boobs put back on. But when you turn the hot dog into a cave, you're not reversing that. Like, I don't see how that works out at all. And there's a lot of people out there. And again, I'm not trying to be insensitive about it. If you're trans, I'm for it, man. Have at it. If this is my point.
If you're gonna say regret rate for transgender surgeries is like 2%.
Okay, but that's
people regret hip surgeries more than they regret transgender anything.
I'm sure I regret my shoulder surgery more than they regret those surgeries on the whole. Okay, that's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is that most
needs to be brought up is when it comes to transitions, it is far easier to do it pre-puberty rather than later.
Which again, puberty blockers. That's what that's for.
Second, I believe that if a legislator, very vocal objector to women being in men's sports, men being in women's sports, whatever. If a guy or a legislator has an issue with a woman being in a particular sport, their voice should be heard. They should be taken serious. Their feelings should become legislature, as long as they beat Ronda Rousey in a fight.
All of our hopes and dreams are on Ronda.
That's a pretty fair bar.
So like, and I get it. It's in the reverse. It has always. I mean, there were plenty of times where girls wanted to go out for the boys football team for whatever position, and they've done wonderfully. Okay, but we are also talking about woman going into a man's sport, which is different than a man going into a woman's sport. And that's the reason why women's sports were created, was to give women the opportunity to compete on a high level, very high level. Okay? I mean, these women could fucking take me out on any of these sports. So this isn't like some sort of male machismo that I'm saying. And in all honesty, I don't care if you're trans. It doesn't affect me at all. You know what I mean? But I do see the argument to be made where if a biologically born female loses an opportunity that she's worked for within the last couple of years of her high school or her education experience, I can see where that would be a problem for them. I can see where women on that team would be upset about that. I can see where that person who lost that position, that woman who lost that position to a transitioning male to female, I can see where they would be upset about that and think that that's not fair and it shouldn't exist. I get that. But in general,
just make college free.
Totally should.
That fixes the scholarship issue.
Well, we're going to get to that, actually. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
I worked in a school, and they had a wrestling team. And the 3 best wrestlers on the team were not actually on the team. They were 3 girls.
Really?
Yeah.
I think women can do things.
Any man on the team.
I totally agree.
They couldn't compete because there was no women's wrestling.
Really, my only issue with this is the idea of men transitioning to become women, taking opportunities away from women. I do have a problem with that. If there's a way that can be figured out where it doesn't happen that way, and the trans person gets to play, I'm all for it. But that's not a fucking federal issue. That's my point. This is
were you at the wrestling meet where Josh had to wrestle a girl?
Yes, I think I was. He did not like it. Did he?
He didn't like it, but he won.
Yeah, well, he Josh is the type to not fucking care. He's like, look, this is the luck of the draw, and bitch, you're going down.
Not to sound sexist, but if he had lost, would that have really been?
No, I don't think so. I think he would have been very happy to have a girl on top of him. God love you, Josh, but at that age, you definitely, well, it would have been embarrassing for everyone because he was in the singlet.
No, he got overshadowed. He got overshadowed at that very same meet because there was a guy on our wrestling team who did not have any kind of learning disability, but the coach of the other team thought that he did and told his wrestler going against our guy to intentionally lose because he thought that our guy had a learning disability.
Oh God.
Oh shit. Okay, back to the list, okay? Let's see here. Let's get back to this real quick. The Democrats advocating for transgender rights, including health care access and gender-affirming care. Again, look, I don't think that this has anything to do with the federal government. I mean, this to me, the transgender issue, yes, you should have the availability through your insurance company. And that's the only time I think that this makes sense for the federal government to get involved is when it's like the insurance companies trying to say
it's life-saving healthcare.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That's the thing. Not all the time, but most times it's life-saving healthcare.
And I think if you really sit down and look at the suicide rate of people that are going through whatever, right? Whatever identity, I'm going to use the word crisis, and I know I'm using that improperly in this particular conversation. No disrespect is meant, but I don't know what the exact term I should use for that is. So let's say you're having an issue, all right?
A mental health crisis.
A mental health crisis. And it's based on the fact that you feel like you're a woman trapped in a man's body.
Actually would be the correct term as far as I'm aware. So
okay. So if that's the crisis, you absolutely deserve to have the best possible care given to you in your area or wherever you can afford to go to. Okay? Whatever the case is. Anything that boils down to medical issues or psychological issues, mental health issues, any of that stuff, that's where government can come in and go, I don't care what your insurance company has donated to my campaign. You're going to take, that's part of it. You have to do that thing. You have to cover that thing. You have to help those people. That's the problem in our country right now, though, is that the idea of actually helping those who are in need, if that need doesn't fit our ideologies.
I mean, this is an issue of rampant individualism, right? This is an issue of individualism to the umpteenth degree in America, where if I'm not struggling with that and I'm not in need of that particular kind of care,
right,
then you don't deserve it.
Individuals. No, I'm not. Shut up.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, that's really the problem. It really comes down to an issue of individualism and the brain rot that accompanies that.
All right. So now this one is the Democrats are in opposition to anti-LGBTQ plus legislation such as bathroom bills. Again, I got to be honest with you, man. I understand people, women, men, whatever, freaking out about this idea of, oh, there's going to be a trans man in the bathroom and he might be a pervert.
Projection.
And it is projection, because the fact of the matter is for the vast majority of the human race, we all shared the same shitter, right? I mean, it was just, that's the shitter. Okay?
Not to mention, if you're talking someone that goes from female to male and you're worried about them sexually harassing men in a men's room, I cannot think of a less pleasant place to sexually harass someone.
No, I mean, again, it's projection
Burlington,
in
Vermont,
and
I might have mentioned this.
Oh, you did, actually. I know where you're going with this. When you went to the concert?
Yes, and at the concert, they had 2 bathrooms, large bathrooms, and both bathrooms had men and women. There was no designation.
Yeah, it was just
so
whatever's open, take it.
Yeah, if it was the stall open, you took it. Both bathrooms had urinals and stalls.
I'm not going to say that there aren't people out there that are into pee-pee and poo-poo. That does exist, but chances are,
as long as they say that they're into that exactly.
That's not going to be
your kinks. Oh, I'm into pee-pee and poo-poo.
Yeah, the chances are, though, that's not going to be the place that they're going to be hitting you up. Okay?
No.
And where they are going to hit you up would be more likely a fucking rest stop off of I-75. And guess what? I had a guy come up to me and fucking 2 a.m. I think I told you this story. 2 a.m. I had to driving back from whatever the fuck bullshit shithole gig I was performing at. And I drive and I'm driving and I have to stop. I go into this rest stop. And there's this little fucking trolley, ginger-haired, fucking big beard dudes, like two or three urinals over. And I go to the bathroom. I'm not even thinking anything of it. And I realize I got that creepy feeling like I'm being watched. And I turn, and this motherfucker is literally turned towards me and has his cock in his hand. I'm like, dude, you need to turn back around to that stall or get your ass handed to you. And I fucking walked out, right? And as I'm driving away, I'm like, oh my God, I think I was just sexually assaulted. But I was. I didn't want to see that. It can happen to anyone, anywhere, under any circumstance. Having a trans man in a bathroom, in a women's bathroom, is probably more protection for your female friend, girlfriend, wife, daughter than anything else, because if some creepy motherfucker does come in, a trans dude is going to put a high heel pump in that motherfucker's head. It's probably for the best if that happens.
That kind of tracks from what I've heard. Obviously, I'm not a part of the trans community or anything like that, but from what I've heard, people who are trans are better allies to like feminist causes and things like that.
Yeah.
Than a lot of women.
That's my point is that when you're fighting, when you're willing to get your dick cut off and turned into a vagina, there's a level of identity to women that you have that most women don't have. There's a feeling of protecting that I think would come with that protection, because you're really taking a big fucking leap. You're taking a big fucking leap. And I got to imagine that most of them are going to be much more inclined to protect what they see as their own kind than to cause problems.
There was a trans person who worked as a waitress at a Denny's I used to frequent. And a woman came crying out of the bathroom because there was a man in her bathroom who grabbed her tit. And as she sat down to complain to her boyfriend, who didn't do anything, the man came out of the bathroom and was quickly dropped by the trans person.
Who was a waitress?
Yes.
See, this is my point.
Literally, they were waiting by the door, waiting for the dude to come out.
Right. I don't think it.
Of course, it was at a Denny's.
There's the old joke, the old Eddie Izzard joke, that because he is transvestite, and he's like, but I was also
He recently came out as trans.
Not recently. He's been out forever.
Yeah, he's been out for a while.
Long time.
I thought that was like
no, we're going back like
5-10 years.
No, we're going back to the 80s, if not before that. He was out.
Yep.
And so he's doing the special, and he's talking about being trans, and he's talking about the fact that when he was a kid, he liked, all the kind of, military kind of idea and wanted to be in the military, and, hunting and guns and fighting and, camping and all that stuff. He was like totally in on all that. And then he goes, but I just prefer to do it with some lipstick on. Right. and it was this really brilliant joke where he goes, in all honesty, wouldn't you really want to have on your side a platoon of transvestite men or women? Right. I'm not sure how to say that right now. Anyways, the point.
Transvestite men, transgender women.
Okay. Well, what regardless, men transitioning to women or full transvestite, right? So he says, is there anything more terrifying than these women coming across that have broad shoulders, guns?
Well, shit. That you're saying that, and that is actually true, because I don't know if either of you have looked too much into General Butt Naked.
Oh yeah, General Butt Naked. Yes, I do know about this one.
No idea what that is.
He was an African warlord,
and recently,
yeah, we're talking like what, 2000, early 2000s,
early 2000s, I believe. Yeah,
he was an African warlord, and he would go around his country. I'm forgetting where it was, unfortunately, but
I don't remember the details. But yes,
they would cannibalize a child in a village as part of their ritual, right? And then they would do heroin and meth, and they would go into battle either completely naked or wearing like wedding dresses, or
and
like
just
clown
scare the
outfits.
shit out of people. And that's my point. If I see somebody in full tactical gear come up my driveway, okay, that's scary. If I see somebody
dude running up towards you with a gun in a wedding dress,
and now I'm fucking freaked out. Like that's a different level of what the fuck is going on.
That's psychological damage.
Yeah, that's gonna put me in therapy for a minute or two. All right, so we're already creeping up on an hour, and I don't really want this to be.
Yeah, we got to keep it moving.
Liberia, that's where they're from.
Liberia, okay. You got to read that story about General Butt Naked. It's really interesting.
And then after the war, he became a born-again Christian.
Sure he did. They all do.
Like, I'm very sorry for cannibalizing children out of these villages.
So the next, I'm gonna go through a couple of these kind of quickly. Reproductive rights for Democrats. They think that reproductive rights, support for abortion rights, and access to contraception is important. I agree. I don't know anyone on this panel that doesn't agree with that. Advocacy for
that is not a politician's place.
It's not a politician's place. They need to keep the fuck out of every woman's vagina. You hear that, Matt Gaetz? Advocacy,
and out of every man's ass.
You hear that, Matt Gaetz? Advocacy for reproductive health care under federal protection. That is something that apparently needs to happen, that we have protection on a federal level. I can't believe that I'm actually saying that I agree with the federal politicians being included on that, but this is a healthcare thing, and healthcare, I think, making sure that it is available for everyone and affordable and good for everyone is the politicians' place in this particular. And I'm not saying presidential. I'm saying your
congressional
leaders. I mean, like if you are a congressman and you know that you've got, let's say, 12 hospitals in your state of 50 that are shit and need to be investigated or need extra help, extra whatever, get in there and get that shit done. Let's see here.
Breaking news.
Uh-oh.
There's a brand new show on OAN.
Oh, gross.
Matt Gaetz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
And he has made headlines not because of those topics, but more because in the camera, his makeup and Botox was extremely noticeable.
Look, that show ain't gonna last.
It has been for a few years.
It has been for, yeah, but it's not. He's not gonna last. He's not.
He doesn't have a personality.
He is literally morphing every day more and more into Butthead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, there's your alien.
Okay, racial justice, addressing systematic racism through criminal justice reform. Again, this is one of those ones where I do agree. This is something that is actually a problem. We know it's a problem because we have for-hire prisons. We have for-profit prisons. As soon as you have for-profit prisons, and the reason we have them, Colton, is why. And where are they most? Where are they the most?
They're most prominent in the Deep South, and we have them because A, they're good investment for billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
B, it's an extension of Jim Crow, which was an extension of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And C, we never got rid of slavery. It's just illegal to do it.
It's repackaged.
It's illegal to do it apropos of nothing, but it is completely legal as a punishment for a crime.
Yes, and that's my point. Is it's under the guise of law and order in the South, it is perfectly legal. But
and they're not even like secretive about it. It'll be like a 98% black prison, and they'll have them picking cotton with a cop on a fucking horse with a whip.
Yeah.
Like they're not even like sly about it.
No. All right, so back to that, supporting movements like Black Lives Matter. I don't think when it comes to any type of movement, unless it's a bowel movement, Congress of any stripe should have anything to say about anything.
No, they should support the principle of the movement, but they should not support the movement itself necessarily. The movement,
I mean, you can say I support what they're trying to do. I think that they have good intention.
The movement is a community, and I don't think that
that's
the
legislators,
federal government.
Yeah,
I don't think that the federal
need
government really needs to involve themselves with a specific community.
This is a weird one. This is reparations discussions for slavery and institutional discrimination. Now, I do have a bit of a problem with this because I'm pretty sure that there's no one alive today that was actually a slave during
No, but
the
there
Civil
are
War.
people alive today that were throwing rocks at the. Why am I forgetting your fucking? God damn it. Little Rock, Arkansas. There were people alive today that were throwing rocks at a little black girl trying to go to school.
Yeah, again, nothing's okay about that. Nothing's okay about that. Okay? But that does not necessarily translate to every black person in America getting 40 acres and a mule.
A promise that we reneged on.
Well, I'm not saying we didn't renege on it. I'm just saying that today, it should have been addressed then. I don't know what the statute of limitations are on that one. And that's where I find myself a bit conflicted and confused. I'm not saying that I know.
We're talking what, 300 years of slavery and then another 100 years of like social repression and legal repression. I don't know. I
like I said, I'm on the fence about it because I guess it depends on how it takes place and
I'm
what
not
that
convinced
means.
by a cash payment.
I'm not either.
I am convinced by other methods of reparations.
And maybe that's the discussion that should happen. But like as the conversation is currently going, I'm struggling with that one. Immigration advocacy, pathways to citizenship for undocumented immigrants. Of course, that is exactly what this country was built on, was undocumented immigrants, for fuck's sake. So let's figure out a way to get them through the system faster. Let's figure out who the good ones are and who the bad ones are. And when I say bad ones, I mean anyone with a criminal record or anyone with ties to cartels or anyone with ties to terrorists. Yes, those people do not need to be in the country. However,
I'm a little more extreme on this. No one's illegal unless they commit a crime.
Well, I just think that when it comes to anyone who's got a criminal history, right, I'm not interested in working with you too much. You know
That's
what I mean?
fair, but I mean, would you hold a criminal record that's 15 years in the past against someone?
I don't know.
With no more recent?
With no recidivism at all? I don't think so. No, I don't think I would. But again, these are things that need to be, these are the real issues. That's my point, is like, there's no real discussion going on about this.
Yeah, the discussion around immigrants is, do we allow immigrants or do we not?
Yeah, and that's not a conversation. It's not nuance. It's not a conversation at all. And I'm going to blast through these real quick here. Opposition to strict border policies. I don't know that that's actually accurate. I don't think that there's really that many Democrats going, well, we don't want any borders. I know that.
No, they're just as strict on the border as the Republicans.
That's my thought on it, too. And what we think on that, regardless, is irrelevant. But this is about Democrat versus Republican. So opposition to strict border policies, gun control advocacy for universal background checks. This one actually has like 90% support from NRA members to get better background checks.
Most gun owners recognize that they are responsible gun owners. Well, that's the thing.
I would say that realistically there should be like an every 5 to 7, maybe 10 year retraining that you have to go through, and you have to bring in your guns and get certified on them. I don't see that problem with that. And you have to go through maybe another background check to make sure that in the last 5 to 7 to 10 years, you didn't fucking, try to kill somebody or didn't have a problem that involved a firearm or whatever.
Yeah, and that goes into like red flag laws and everything like that. To me, I don't think you're ever going to get a ban on a certain gun or style of gun or anything like that without removing the Second Amendment, and that's not going to happen.
It's never going to happen. Exactly. So I don't know why they're even talking about it.
Yeah, to me, all they should be advocating for is the common sense gun law argument. Every gun deserves a background check, no matter whether you're getting it from some, a secondhand deal or private seller or gun show.
Ghost gun.
Ghost guns. Every gun. Well, I guess ghost guns, you wouldn't do a background check.
Well, by its very nature, you can't. I mean, look, Luigi Mastacholi, I mean, he 3D printed his. So, yeah, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, no matter what kind of security you have on your computer, you can still get hacked. You know what I mean? Like, no matter how strong your security is, you're still going to get hacked. It's the same thing with gun laws. No matter how strong your gun,
the culture. You have to address gun culture if you want to address the gun violence.
And you have to understand what the fuck gun culture is.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Climate change. Obviously, Democrats are very, very much hair on fire about climate change. I don't know.
They should be.
Maybe, you know what I mean? I've heard compelling arguments on both sides from scientists. Compelling on both sides. I don't know, but here's what I do know. The fucking seasons are changing in a way in Michigan that I don't recall, and maybe it's just bad memory, but I kind of remember there was a very good chance you were going to have snow on Halloween, and definitively you were going to have snow on Thanksgiving. And my God, were you going to have snow on Christmas? But beyond that, January, you get a little snow, and then February, March started to warm up. April, May, June, and then you actually had your spring. You actually had 3 months.
Our winter is January, February, March, April.
Yes, and our fall goes all the way to Christmas.
Yeah, for me, the issue about climate change is that while yes, you're correct, there are compelling arguments on both sides. The problem is when you look at the breakdown of those compelling arguments, you're talking like 98% are on the side of, hey, humans are causing climate change and it's bad and we've hit several tipping points, and then 2% are former tobacco lawyers and scientists that are getting paid off by oil companies.
Mm-hmm. All right, keep this rolling. Let's see. I'm just going to barrel through this. Support for global agreements like the Paris Climate Accord, which I think is a good idea if you can get everyone on board. Opposition to fossil fuel subsidies. I am absolutely against fossil fuel subsidies.
Yeah.
If you are making the kind of money that the fossil fuel companies are making, you do not need subsidies.
At the expense of everyone on the globe and every animal on the globe.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that's got to go bye-bye. That's corporate welfare. Go fuck yourself. So I'm with the Democrats on that. Education and curriculum. I do believe that you do need, at least in some form, a standard on what the kids are being taught. I think that there does need to be some sort of standard. I don't know that that's a federal standard, but it should be a consistent standard. And the reason I think that for as poor as the Department of Education is, and for as many things as you can complain about when it comes to the board or to Department of Education, I do believe that you need to have certain standards that go across every state in an effort to put the kids that are learning in a position where they can leave that state and actually get a job.
Well, I mean, you're right, because there are still kids learning the lost cause myth.
Exactly.
Right. And for anyone at home that does not know what the lost cause myth is, there's a trend in the south of the U.S., particularly former Confederate states from our Civil War, who even still, that ended in 1865. It is 2025. There are still kids being taught that the Civil War was a war of Northern aggression against Southern liberty. I would ask Southern liberty to do what? Answer.
I'm sorry. You lost me here for a second. Say it again.
So there are kids being taught that the Civil War was a war of Northern aggression against Southern liberty. And I would ask liberty to do what?
Exactly. Slavery.
Yes.
That
it's not even a question. It was in their state constitutions. It was in the Confederate States of America's constitution.
Well, they were afraid that it was basically going to getting rid of slavery was going to cut into their bottom line, and that's really what they did not understand. And I think to some degree they still don't understand is that it was actually getting rid of slavery was in their benefit, because when you didn't own them, right? That means you didn't have to worry about feeding them. You didn't have to worry about their health care. You didn't have to worry about clothing them. And you didn't have to worry about housing them. So what they did was they got rid of quote unquote slavery. And while some people did not like that idea, they eventually came around to realizing they were actually making more money, because now whatever pittance they were paying these poor ex-slaves was not really enough for them to feed themselves, clothe themselves, house themselves.
Yes.
And that's
take care of their
Jim Crow.
And that's where you get Jim Crow. Exactly.
Then the lost cause aspect of it was that the South surrendered because they realized, we're putting so much money into this war that we're not going to win, because the North has help from Britain and France and Canada and so on and so forth. And this is just a waste of our time, and we should just give up and let them make their bed and lie in it. That's the lost cause myth.
Well, that kind of sounds like Trump nowadays, in my opinion, on his presidency. It's a lost cause. So let him do it. Let him. This is what you voted for. I mean, so I don't think that necessarily has gone away. And unfortunately, it seems like it's even more prevalent today, but on a much larger and destructive
And then even
scale.
beyond that, one thing that you had written down in the show notes was advocacy for comprehensive sex education. That is the number one factor in reducing child sexual abuse
and pregnancy.
And pregnancy, yeah.
So they talk about, abstinence is a way. You're right. If you never fuck, you won't get pregnant and you won't get a sexually transmitted disease.
But that's a cop-out, because kids are gonna grow up.
They're gonna grow up.
Fuck.
It happens. You can't stop it. It's nature. It's natural. It's what goes on in the back of every fucking car. I mean, it's just what happens when you're a teenager. It's the point. And I think to a degree it's healthy, because it's a point of discovery of who you are. It's a learning thing. It's a rite of passage even. And I think that healthy sexuality is in the benefit of everyone. And if you can't talk openly and honestly about that, what are we hiding? What are we hiding here? All right, let me get this straight. You're conservative and you don't want sex ed taught to your child. Okay. Are you okay?
What? So
are you okay with
Uncle Billy can keep touching them and they won't know?
Well, no. Let's take it. I mean, we can take it a different way. But you're okay with them going through shooter drills?
Yeah, I even saw recently there was a middle school graduating class going to high school that their principal got them bulletproof backpack inserts. Now, how fucking dystopian is that?
That's fucking disgusting. Okay. Support for student loan forgiveness programs. I totally believe in that. I think education should be, higher education especially, should be free. If you're going to, and when I say free, that should be the subsidy. So you take the subsidy away from big oil and fossil fuels, and you put it into education. Because if you're honestly trying to build your tax base so that you are the wealthiest country in the world, isn't that done by having an educated constituency?
Yeah, I mean, and even beyond that, we have consistently been falling behind as a country in all of the STEM fields,
which is
not
why,
to mention every other field.
Which is why you have, hold on, that's exactly the reason why you have this big fucking civil war between MAGA and Elon and Vivek, right? Is because, we don't want anyone in our country illegally. And then Elon goes, well, we need the H-1Bs.
Because he was one and hires them almost exclusively because they're cheaper labor.
That's true. But they're also getting the education that they need, not the education that they want. And not the education that so like there's a lot more focus on STEM when you're in India or in China.
Because that's the path to growing the nation into a more superpower stance.
This is my point, though. And when they're done with their education on a primary level and they go to the secondary level, which is your colleges, and they come to the United States and they go and they take advantage of, whether be it from scholarships or them just paying for it, getting what they consider to be the best possible education they could ever get. Why wouldn't we want to keep them here? If Einstein... look, if you can have a Project Paperclip, keeping Nazi soldiers in this country because they were the ones that understood rockets better than anyone else, and put fucking Von Braun on a goddamn Disney show, you can definitively find a way to make sure that anyone who's coming into this country on a visa is held here to give back to the country that's given them the education.
I say take it out of the military, personally. But...
Walt Disney presents Mengele's Magical Kingdom.
All right, kids. Now you do not get on the unmarked train.
No, this is the train you get on. This is the train you do not get on unless you have the thing on your lapel.
If you get on the train and there are no chairs, you're in the wrong train.
Now, one more thing.
Come to Mengele's dance party in the ovens. It's getting hot in here. So all your clothes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to hell for this one. Now, again, I don't want to get too long in the tooth on all this, but whether it's... and I'm going to jump...
for the German audience member.
I'm so sorry.
There goes our fucking buddy in Berlin. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. And we've got one in Balin, too. Oh, sorry. So sorry. Oh, fuck. Oh, my God. That's hysterical. So even things like healthcare advocacy, support for federally funded healthcare for marginalized groups, voting rights, opposition to voter ID, these are all police reform. These are all things that are more Democrat. And as you go into the Republicans, it's pretty much they're just against all this. So when you get into the Republicans, obviously they're opposed to LGBTQ. They support religious freedom laws, allowing businesses to refuse service based on
religious
beliefs.
freedom as long as you're Christian.
Exactly. And again, this gets to, we won't have any Sharia law in this country. Oh, but that's
we will
what
have
you're
Christian law.
But you're advocating for exactly the same thing in a different way. It's just under a different label. I mean, it's like saying we'll have no Coca-Cola, but we will have Pepsi.
If you take out the religious references like to God or to Allah, and you look at the Freedom Caucus and what they want and what the Taliban and ISIS want,
same thing.
It's almost 1-to-1.
It's almost 1-to-1. It is. It's very, very close. So obviously, and we've kind of discussed this, but they support the religious freedom laws opposed to gender affirming care. They're opposed to abortion. They support overturning Roe v. Wade. They are very Second Amendment heavy and strong.
Hell yeah, brother.
Advocacy. I mean, but that's the thing is they talk about this as if they think that there aren't Democrats that like guns too. I mean, I've got 20?
Yeah, and Kamala and Tim Walz
have guns.
I mean, gun owners.
I know more Democrats that own guns than I know Republicans that own guns at this point. Immigration, they support stricter border controls and building barriers like the border wall. Border wall is just ridiculous. That's just a waste of fucking money. There are way more technologically advanced ways to monitor the border in a way that is not putting up a big fucking ugly wall. And a wall that
you're going to build a 30-foot wall. Guess what?
32
Juan
foot
has a 31-foot ladder.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't, or a shovel.
Yeah.
I mean, did we learn nothing about the fact that Mexicans can dig fucking tunnels? I mean,
and they're
good at it.
Have ladders.
Yeah, they're good at it. They've got this shit figured out. This is one that always tickles me. Their opposition to critical race theory in schools.
But they can't define critical race theory.
And they can't show us what school it's happening in.
I'm in grad school, and I have not heard one lecture about critical race theory except when talking about how it's an overblown culture war.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, you can make the critique like, all your professors are libcucks. They're all liberals. They're all communists. They're not.
But you can call them that.
You can call them that all you want, but you still can't define critical race theory.
Yeah, I mean, I can call a cow. I can call a cow a horse, but it doesn't make that cow a horse.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Critical race theory and DEI are both just stand-ins for the N-word now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And for all the crying that the right does, Kamala was a DEI hire for Biden. All of the DEI crap. Wouldn't that be the same as hiring a geriatric, mind-numbing president-elect for a job he's clearly not capable of doing?
Okay, that could go either way on Democrat or Republican now.
That's why I didn't make.
That's why
I tried to avoid making either one
the distinction. Yeah,
it's just.
But also, just if you're gonna complain about DEI or critical race theory, first of all, know what you're talking about, and second of all, just say the slur. We know.
Well, yeah. But beyond that, at least be able to define what it is you're upset about. And have some sort of proof that what you are upset about is happening in.
Have an educated opinion.
In a school. I don't need it even in every school. Just a school. They can't do it.
Have an educated opinion, for God's sake.
Advocacy for school choice and vouchers, and support for parental control over curricula. All right. So no, you do not have a fucking parent saying, I don't like you teaching my kid math. Or, I don't like you teaching my kid history because I don't agree with the history you're teaching. No, fuck you. That's part of public schools. If you don't like it, you're welcome to private school them, and you're welcome to pull them out and put them in private school, or teach them at home.
That reminds me of
whatever.
That Moms of America or whatever.
Yeah, that went to shit real quick.
Involved in Texas.
Yeah, that went to shit real quick.
And realized she was so wrong.
Oh yeah, that went wrong.
And then her own group turned on her.
Yeah.
Also, she was like, Fuck it. No private schools. No homeschooling. Get rid of that shit. It's just an excuse to not educate your kid on something or other.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't care about that. Like, if you're going to damage your child in that way, Go ahead. Let's see how well your child does.
Do it in the privacy of your own home.
Yeah, like I said, I have no problem with I have no problem with it. I'm very big into
Why are you in my face about it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Why can't we just say to those people, if you want to fuck up your kid, go ahead.
Well, that's it.
My kid will take your kid's job.
Exactly. Religious values, emphasis on Christian values in public life in opposition to perceived secularization. If this country
First
should
Amendment.
be anything, it should be secular, and I think that is expressed in the First Amendment.
And even beyond the First Amendment, when you're talking Federalist Papers, our founding documents, although they are not legal, they're not necessarily like legal scripture.
Yeah, they don't
right?
fall. They don't fall into the same category as the Constitution. Or
But
the
you're
Bill of
talking a
Rights.
founding father saying, "Hey, it's a really bad idea for church and state to be combined together because that's how you get the Catholic Church running half of Europe."
Yeah. And to take that one step further, they also believe in support for school prayer and religious displays in public places. Again, I totally disagree with that. Religion has no place in public schooling. Big tech and free speech, their opposition to perceived censorship by social media platforms. They have calls for government intervention to regulate tech companies, moderation practices, gender and family
Real
issues.
quick.
Yeah.
Before we get too far away from it, on the prayer and religious displays in public school, you have a bit of a story about that from when I was a kid.
Do you want me to tell it, or you want to tell it from your
you go
perspective?
Ahead. You go ahead.
So when he was you were what?
Second grade.
I come home from the road. I've got the week off, and this is like a Wednesday or Thursday. This would have been like a Tuesday or Wednesday, actually. They have these muscleheads going and doing a show for all the kids in the school.
They're tearing phone books.
Tearing phone
Power
books.
team.
What's that?
Power team.
Yeah, the power team. And bending the frying pans. And
I'm
then
familiar with them.
And then at the end, they're handing out.
Come in carrying fridges like they're badass.
And then at the end, they're handing out like trading cards, what looked like trading cards, but were actually invitations to show up to see the bigger show at the church, the Lutheran church.
Yeah.
He brings home these cards. He's telling me about what he saw. He doesn't know he saw anything bad. He doesn't know that he was like, this is cool. Shit, look. And I'm like,
they were fucking bending frying pans.
Yeah,
ripping
so like,
shit in half.
Yeah, he was impressed, right? And he's like, can I go see them tonight? And I'm like, where? And he hands me the information. I go, that's a church. And I go, and I went to that church.
And I went to public school.
And I went to that performance. And the next morning, I was on the phone with the principal. And I was pissed. So at the end of by the time this all came around,
my recollection was she was in tears over the phone.
Yes, yeah, she was. So what ends up happening is this happens.
Tears in her eyes.
This happens on like a Wednesday or Tuesday. Tuesday or Wednesday, right? Thursday, I have to go to Fort Wayne, Indiana to do a show. And I go and I do the show. I'm waiting for the call back on this, right? And Friday, I get the call. And I said, I'm not going to say her name, but it was a female principal. And she goes, I understand that you have issue with the performance that happened with, what are the guys called again? Power team, right? And I go, yeah, I do, actually. And I only have a couple of questions for you. The first is, what the fuck were you thinking? And she goes, I'm not going to be talked to that way. I go, oh, you will be spoken to that way. Trust me, you will. And the second thing is, if you don't want to be spoken to that way, how about I just take this complaint right to the board of directors of the school? Why don't I take it right up the line? I go, because what you did, whether you realized it or not, is you brought in to a public school a religious organization that was promoting and trying to recruit children to their religion. And then she got real quiet because she realized, oh, fuck. And I go, now, there's a couple ways we can handle this. You can apologize to me. You can accept the fact that I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, or I can just go and get you fired. And she goes, what do you got? And she's in tears. She knows she's fucked, right? I go, first and foremost, you're never going to bring another religious group or anything religious into that school ever again. She goes, yes, Mr. Brewer. Yes, I agree. I go, and secondly, my son's got another 4 years. In the first 2 years or 3 years that he's been here, you put him on the wrong bus when he wasn't supposed to be on a bus. I had to go and find him. And now this. And I forgave you the first
many
time.
Problems in between and past.
Yeah, and I go, and there's several things that have happened in between and that and now. I go, so you've not only lost my child and put him on a bus that he wasn't supposed to be on, but now you're trying to indoctrinate him with religion in a public school. So those are 2 instances. We're not going to get to number 3. So here's the way this is going to work. My son's got another 4 years with you in this school. At some point, he's going to fuck up because kids fuck up. And at some point, you're going to call me into the office regarding his behavior. And at some point, when that does happen, I'm going to remind you of this incident, and you're going to give him a pass. And what happened? 5th grade.
Oh, I got multiple get out of jail free cards on that.
Yeah, but it really
she
hit
was
hard.
Afraid.
It really
the main
hit hard.
one. The main one was 5th grade, but like there were
was
definitely
like
a few.
3 or 4 between then.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, she was very aware and hadn't forgotten the incident. And by 5th grade, it had slipped her mind. So he gets into a spat with another child. And mind you, this spat came after he had told the teacher, told the principal, told the librarian, told the counselor. This kept going on. So he had done all of his due diligence on this, right?
Over at least 3 years, this was happening.
Right. And finally, little man goes, enough. And he put this motherfucker down. And the teacher saw this go on. And she's like, I can take my time walking over there. Because she knew the history of it.
The situation. Yeah.
Right. She knew the situation. So she was giving him opportunity to get a few licks in. But he wasn't even doing that. He was just submitting him. So then I get called into the office, right? Next day.
This is grounds for expulsion.
Yeah, this is a zero tolerance, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay. I will be going to see the school board of directors, and I will make sure that we not only discuss this incident, but we'll discuss religious institutions being brought in as entertainment for recruiting children and blah, 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 right? And she went fucking blank. I mean, white. And that was when I said, let me hear you say that he's not getting in trouble at all. And then I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk out and I'm going to go home and enjoy the rest of my day. Or I'm going to get you fired today. That's your choice. And she goes, everything's good, Mr. Brewer. You go ahead and just fucking, everything's good. Right. But this is the problem is that when you have these schools are underfunded, so they can't bring in entertainment, but they're required to bring in entertainment. So they have to look for things that are free. And guess what? When it comes to religion, we are happy to come in and be free for you. One caveat. We're going to try to recruit everyone. This is what happened in the fucking, in the jungles, for fuck's sake, of Africa, right? Oh, we're going to build you a home. All you have to do is give your life and soul and everything to Jesus. Well, that's not a gift. That's not entertainment. That's nothing. You're not helping. Stop it. If you want to make people realize how great your fucking religion is, show by example. And wait for one of us poor-ass, depressed motherfuckers to go, your life looks great. Can you tell me how you're so happy? And then fucking proselytize to us. Until then, keep your fucking mouth shut. All right, moving on. Sorry, I got on a soapbox.
Yeah, sorry to derail. I felt like that
was a big
important
derail.
Context.
I think that was a big derail.
Just to let you know, Power Team is actually based out of Dallas, Texas, and they're a Christian evangelist group.
Yeah, well,
of course they are.
My argument was, and I even told the principal, I was like, even if there was no religious aspect to that, why would I want my second grader coming home, grabbing a frying pan out of my fucking cupboard and trying to bend it? I go, do you realize the fucking message you're sending? I go, you're not thinking any of this through. You're just like, oh, free, and I can put it in and mark that box off on what a principal has to do. I go, but you're not even taking into consideration what the fuck it is. All right, enough.
I'm gonna derail here with really quick with a news story that I think is important.
Oh boy.
But one of Vladimir Putin's twin turbine helicopters had been shot down by Ukraine using a Magura V5C drone over the Black Sea. Now, this is the first time in the world that an aerial target was blasted using such a drone. And what a big success this is for Ukraine just in the last few hours of 2024.
Fuck you, Putin.
Get your authoritarian shit out of my Ukraine.
To go along with that, it's not Ukraine, it is my crate.
Yeah.
But, in the Black Sea also is a power cable from the Baltic states to Finland.
Yeah,
Finland provides power.
Yeah, but isn't that also part of their internet?
Yes.
Okay.
And it was cut.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, no Facebook in Finland.
But they know who did it.
No.
Yes.
Was it Joey?
Finland was watching.
Really?
Yes. Why? Because Finland is a bunch of sneaky motherfuckers.
I have a story about this, but continue.
And it was one of Russia's spy ships dragging its anchor along the seabed to cut all the cables.
Oh, no
Which is what they're thinking is exactly what happened in the ocean when Russia tried to cut internet from Europe to America.
My story about this is I believe it was Finland. It might have been one of the other Scandinavian countries. They had reasonable suspicion to believe that Russia was snooping and had some submarines in the North Sea. And in order to combat this, they made a giant underwater neon sign that said, if you're gay, Sweden's this way. Or whatever country it was.
That's
because
fucking funny.
Russia has illegalized public homosexuality, and the Scandinavian countries are very open.
Yeah,
they're very open about
because here, look, I'm going to say one last thing here. Okay, one last thing.
Well,
no, go ahead if you got to finish.
Yeah, they took photos from a U-2 spy plane of Chinese spy balloons in the atmosphere. I don't know if you've seen this.
No,
I've seen the photos. But a U-2 spy plane from the U.S. took photos. And all I could picture is, you know how they refill airplanes in air?
Yeah.
They had the big penis tube that comes out.
Right.
And mounts the plane.
Yeah.
And then it shakes.
I'm not going to lie. It's kind of hot.
And it, ejaculates into the gas tank.
Yes. That's exactly what it does.
I just kept thinking, why can't the U-2 spy plane have one of those come out with just a little needle on the end?
Just a little poke. All right,
and
so
let it just fall to earth.
So the last thing, and this is the one that gets me the most, because when it comes to the conservative side, specifically MAGA, again, I don't want to say that there are any bad people in the world or in the United States or in the political discussion, but there are definitely.
Oh, but there are.
There are definitely people who are not necessarily educated or willing to understand that just because you don't like something doesn't mean that it cannot exist. So one of the things that they're big on right now is gender and family issues, opposition to redefining traditional family structures, advocacy against the normalization of non-binary gender identities. And it doesn't make any sense to me, because how does that affect you on a daily? Like, what's the worst thing that fucking happens, right? Worst thing that happens to you is you go to a restaurant or you go to a grocery store and you're being waited on by somebody who is not like you.
Mm-hmm.
The job still gets done.
Not like me.
Yeah, so let's say you got somebody who's a trans checking out your groceries. You still get to check out. You still have to pay that bill. you still get your groceries bagged, and you still get to go home and fill your fat fucking pie hole with all the processed foods that you could fit in your fat little fucking cart. Nothing has changed.
No matter
I just
what.
got the picture, Colton, by the way.
Yeah, the gay since 1944, Sweden. But yeah, on top of that, like, everyone is different from you. No one lives the same as you.
No, but they are under the impression, I think, that everyone that they go to church with lives exactly the same as they do. And what they don't realize is between the sheets or behind closed doors, every one of those motherfuckers they've got their own thing.
At least one person in every congregation has a shit kink.
Probably. Especially when you get into the mega churches. I think it's bigger in the mega churches.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it has anything to do with the size of the congregation in the mega churches. I think it has more to do with mega churches bring out people who want to be pooped on.
Yeah, and not to mention the pastors touching the altar boys.
Yeah.
And
it's fine. It's fine. All right. Let's wrap this shit up.
That's a big pile of shit. I just get a cracker.
Something about this has me brick.
Is this a new dip?
Why is the wine yellow?
Give me a good news story and let's wrap this motherfucker up.
A good news. That is a tall.
There got to be something.
You're asking a lot there.
Yellowstone is under a watchful eye of erupting.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Okay, good news.
Well, that'll
story.
take out Red America.
Well, I mean,
good news story.
That is true.
I know that nobody in this call will care but me, but you know what? This is my microphone. You'll listen to everything I have to say. But
well, unfortunately, you've been hearing me preach a little bit too long here on this one. So go ahead, Keith. The mic and the floor is all yours.
Well, I'm taking it. The Detroit Lions have got 7 Pro Bowl selections because they're that goddamn good.
Only
they got
losses.
the most votes for the year nationwide came for the Lions. In fact, they made NFL history a couple of weeks ago. They had 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers all get over 1,000 yards. First time in NFL history.
No shit. That's awesome.
Only 2 losses. I'm color me impressed, but I think this is the harbinger of doom that the Lions are doing well.
Yeah. Yes, the end of hell is freezing over. The aliens are going to land and the apocalypse begins with the Lions winning the Super Bowl. And with that,
ironically, that was in a comment section for one of the stories that this is truly the end times.
This is
because the proof is the Detroit Lions are killing other teams.
And with that, I think that's another Elsie's little pickles.